Okay.
What happened to your short videos?
The Dir Batachtonim? Yeah. I was worried that would happen. I was worried that was going to happen. I'm doing a lot of stuff, and it's hard to keep up, and I get these bursts of things, and then I don't get enough feedback, so I just stop. But Bezrat Hashem, people are still on the group, and so we can continue, when the time is right. Okay, so it's Parshas Tetzei, and again we're gonna do a Sicha from the Rebbe. This is his last Sicha in Tetzei, and he starts out by highlighting that the connection between Tetzei and Kisavo, right? Tetzei l'milchama, this week's Parsha when you go out to war, and next week's Parsha Kisavo when you come into the land. And yes, they're 1 week after the other, but our minhag is that on Shabbos we read the next week's Parsha Mincha time. So in the same day, we're reading Tetzei in the morning and Kisavo in the afternoon. And he points out that this is quite a stark contrast, because Tetzei and Kisavo seem to be total opposite things. Tetzei is you're going out, like even just the names. Tetzei is going out, Tavo is coming in. Okay, and the content of the parshas is also different. Tetzei l'milchama leivecha. You're going out to war against your enemy. Kisavo, and when you come into the land, v'yarashta v'yashavta, and you'll inherit it and you'll dwell in it. So going out to war and dwelling in your land are two different situations that are pretty opposite one of the other. Even if the milchama is very nice, you're gonna for sure win the milchama, and Hashem's gonna give your enemy into your hand. That's very nice, but it's certainly not. It certainly doesn't seem to be like it doesn't seem to be a situation that is with lacking of a certain menucha and a certain rest and dwelling, that when you come into your land and you'll inherit it, you'll dwell it, that implies. So the opposition between the two parshas stands. So he goes on to explain. Okay, that's how he opens up the Sicha. Then he goes on to explain. It says, Ki seitze l'milchama leivecha Mara al yatziyah the nefesh alokis misharsha mekar l'maylo. When it says Tetzei l'milchama, when you go out to your land or go out to war, that's talking about when your soul departs from its original source. When your soul goes out of its original place in heaven, its source and its root above in the Olam Atzilus. There was, we say neshama shenasata b'tahirahi. That neshama shenasata b'tahirahi, it came out of a high place. Leirid lamata, and it came down low. Ad leilam asiyah gashmi, until this physical world of action. Shal zen emar, still in Modani, ata barasa, you created it. Yitzarta, you fashioned it. Niftachta, you blew it into me. Mishamra, and you're guarding it inside of me. Lislabesh, that's it's being dressed up in a guf v'nefesh abahamis. Right? We spoke at one point. The Rebbe explains the physics or the biology of it is that we have blood, right? A nefesh hi adam hi a nefesh. The blood is the nefesh, right? We have a prohibition to eat the blood of an animal. And basically, on our blood is a certain mist, certain vapor, and on that vapor lives our nefesh bahamas, lives our nefesh bahamas, our animal soul. And on the nefesh bahamas lives our neshama elokis, our godly soul. Okay? So it's kind of like stacked. And so that is what the situation of the neshama is, at least when we wake up. Why did it do that? Kedei lavaram ulazachakam, in order to purify and clarify the body and the nefesh bahamas. The neshama came down to purify, lavaram, to clarify, ulazakacham, and to purify the guf and the nefesh bahamas. Ad lahaber v'zikuch v'chelka ilam, until that he's able to clarify and purify his chelek in the world. This work that the soul is in our body, our soul that came from the highest world, Olam Atzilus, it came down into our body, into our physical body, and is stacked on our physical, on our animal soul. It's there in order to clarify and fix. He doesn't say fix. He says clarify and purify this situation, which is our chelik. This is our chelik in the world, right? Nobody has my nefesh bahamis. Nobody has my guf. So my nefesh bahamis, my guf, is my neshama's job to work on, to clarify and to purify in this world. That is my avoda. That's my chelik. You have your nefesh bahamis and your guf. And so your neshama comes down to clarify your nefesh bahamis and your guf. That's your chelik in the world that only you can do. And that work is described or characterized as a war against an opposer. Right? It says Tetzei against your enemy. Right? And this is most specifically referring to the time of Galus. So Tetzei l'milchama aloivecha is really, right? That's not the pshat, but the drash, the remez. I don't know which one it is, but what the Torah is talking about is describing the soul's descent in from on high to our body in order to purify and clarify our body, our chelik in this world, our chelik agashmi in this world, and that is a war. That is a war. And that war, the time of that war is in Galus. Galus is the time for that war. Okay? Shemitzad hahelam v'hester, because in Galus that's when everything's hidden and dark. Decheshkas hagalus mudgash yosir toikaf hamenaged, because of the darkness of Galus, the hiddenness, we don't see Hashem, we don't see Achdus Hashem, right? All we see is fragmentation. That darkness of Galus, of exile, further emphasizes the koyach, the power, the chayzik, the strength of this opposer, of our enemy. And therefore the war becomes even more intense. The war is intense in Galus because the menaged, our opposer, is intense in Galus. And what's the opposer? The opposer is the darkness. I mean, or at least the darkness gives the war a greater intensity, because the darkness is what makes this world so much more difficult to deal with. Because we don't see Hashem. We don't see Achdus Hashem. So we see that, we don't see that Hashem's running the world. We don't see that everything is chiyas of Hashem, right? We see nature. We see cause and effect. Okay? We don't see that Hashem's running the world. So when we see the cause and effect, when we see that olam kimin hagai, ketiva min hagai, whatever, that the world goes according to the way it goes, so we get all we got to take care of ourselves. Right, the world's going on its way, and I got to follow the rules. I gotta pay my taxes. I gotta get a job. I gotta this and I'm in it for my I gotta save myself over here in this world. I gotta survive, and survival, that drive to survive, is a nefesh bahamis drive. Okay, that's a nefesh bahamis guf drive. Okay, so if our job is to clarify and to purify the nefesh bahamis, then we can see why Galus makes that fight so much more difficult, because the darkness strengthens our nefesh bahamis, because our sense of survival, right? If I was living with Hashem all around me, and I saw Hashem so clearly, and everything, like in the midbar, right? Everything was the air conditioning, the laundromat, everything was right there, the mun, everything. Did I have any kind of need for this? Oh, I got to take care of myself. I got to get a job. I got to this, cause and effect. My goof and my nefesh bahamis was very calm. Was very calm. It did not. There was really no. It didn't really have such an ability to start yapping and saying, "Oh, we gotta survive here," right? And we know that in the Midbar that a lot of that all the antagonism came from the what's it called? The Erev Rav, okay? But the Yidden Bnei Yisrael. I mean, it's not like the Erev Rav didn't. They are part of the Jewish people here, I guess. But the Jews. Their nefesh bahamis was quieted. They had what they needed. They had everything. There was no this drive. I gotta succeed. I gotta survive. I gotta make it. I gotta figure it out. God helps those who help themselves. I gotta do it. So gullus and that darkness, it triggers our ego. It triggers our nefesh bahamis. It triggers our sense of survival, and the ego and our nefesh bahamis thrives on fragmentation. Thrives on its self survival. That I gotta survive. I gotta keep myself alive. They say there's a Hasidish idea that if a Yid goes to another Yid for advice, or for some kind of spiritual help or whatever, they're for sure going to be matzliach. Why? Because you have two nefesh elokises against one nefesh bahamis.
Why?
Okay. I'm trying to remember how it goes. Because you don't have two nefesh bahamises. Because the nefesh bahamis, it's by nature is to stay separate. Is by nature to be, I'm you and you're you and I'm me. That's the nature of the nefesh bahamis, and that serves a purpose, right? We have our own personality. We have our own right. I have my own chelik in the world. Okay, my neshama is not coming to clarify your chelik. My neshama is coming to clarify my chelik. What's my chelik if my ego doesn't, my nefesh bahamis doesn't stand up for itself, doesn't have its own personality, its own uniqueness, its own individuality.
Two together. Okay.
So you have two nefesh elokises because they join, because they want to, they're in it to join, to help.
They're different though.
Well, maybe they're different, maybe they're not. But the nefesh bahamises they're not joining in on this job together. They're not joining. Okay. So you don't have them as a problem. So you have one guy, he's got a nefesh bahamis, he wants to come for help from another guy, and that guy's willing to go. So he's not coming with his nefesh bahamis, he's coming only with his nefesh elokis, because his nefesh bahamis is by nature not interested in helping this guy. His nefesh bahamis is interested in helping himself. Okay, so he's not coming with his nefesh bahamis is not really involved. So you have two nefesh elokises, and this other guy's nefesh bahamis that he's got a problem with. So if you're sure going to be matzliach, because he gets 2 against 1, so you're for sure going to get matzliach. Anyway, so you see the point that's coming to being brought out is that the nefesh bahamis is in it for himself. That's his nature. That's his nature. And gullus and darkness and not seeing that we are totally being enveloped all the time in God's light and love and liveliness gives the ego like the upper hand. And so our milchama is really, our ego is in a certain sense our menaged. He's the one we're trying to talk sense into. And the darkness of Gullus keeps us from being able to talk sense into him. Because he's rational. Look around. I got to do this. What do you mean don't be scared? What do you mean don't, you're telling me I should be honest here? The guy's going to, I have to cut corners here. How are you going to survive? And they're going to make all the terutzim of how this is, and everything is really ultimately for their own survival, for the ego survival. And this is a milchama. This is a milchama, and the darkness of Gullus, which we are thoroughly enmeshed in. You know, who said the greatest thing the devil did was to convince us he didn't exist? So, you know, that's like we're so in the darkness that it's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking? That is I got it. Hashem only helps those who help themselves. So this is a milchama. V'chisavo, and when you come into the land, next week's parsha, that's talking about an avoda, a service that's both in shalmanucha, v'shalom, with peace and tranquility and peace. That's bizman Yisrael yoshvin al masam, a beis hamikdash al machayna. That's in a geula kind of situation. The opposite, the tachlis, the complete opposite of the situation and the status of kitzei l'milchama aloivecha, when you go out to war. The avoda of the zman of golus. That's the avoda of the zman in exile. Furthermore, what are we talking about when we say, let's see here. Okay, let's keep just going. The content of Kisavo, the next week's parsha, Kisavo Lars, when you come to the land and you'll dwell in it, you'll inherit it, you'll dwell in it. Right? It says, Bakriya Batayra Shi Nitzches, Bayoim Zeh Shayach Gam, Beker Lahabia, Elo Aretz Yerusha V'Yeshiva, Beretz El Sidlava Begula Mitis V'Shlema Yedei Mashiach Tzidkenu. So this where Kisavo is, even though it's talking about when you're coming into Eretz Yisrael, right, and you inherit it after the 14 years when Yeshua come in, 14 years of kibush and chiluk. Okay, that's what it's talking about in the pshat level. But on this other level, we're talking about is that it's revealing what the time to come will be. And through this, it's emphasized even more the split and the distance between the two parshias, right? One is Bizman Agulus, right? Our parsha, Bizman Agulus and Milchama, the war and exile, darkness. And one, peace, tranquility, right? Mashiach, Geula. It also is bringing up the chiluk between the time of working and the time of reward. This is the Tetzei seems to be talking about our avoda here, the avoda of galus, of working, of clarifying this nefesh bahamis, our physical situation, our chelik in the world, clarifying it, purifying it. And the next week's parsha Kisavo is talking about when you come and you have peace. That's the schar. That's the reward of olam haba, or la'asi lavo, to future time. And this is emphasized when we say, okay, so he brings another part. So now, this is all part of, I guess, the bringing up the kasha. How do we see these two parshas on opposite sides of the spectrum, and yet at mincha time, right, on Shabbos, we read them both on the same day. We read them both on the same day together. So how could it be? Same day. Okay, so he's going to start to clarify. The beginning of this parsha, when we read parsha, the beginning of next week's parsha, Kisavo, this is how he explains it. It's like a perush and a biur. It's a explanation and a clarification of this week's parsha. Next week's parsha is not opposite. It's actually a clarification. It's an explanation of this week's parsha. What are you talking about? You just finished 3 pages telling me how it's the exact opposite. Now you're telling me no, it's not the exact opposite. It's actually an explanation of this week's parsha. Next week's parsha is an explanation. That's why we read it right together in Shabbos Mincha, because you'll get confused. And so Kisavo is going to tell you the pshat of Tetzei. How does that go? Shigam avodah de milchama, the work of galus now that we're doing the milchama aloivecha tzrich liyos, it has to be ba'oifen shel menucha v'syashvus. It has to be in a way, the avodah that we do against our yetzer, against our ego, against our selfishness, against the darkness of the world, must be b'menucha. v'syashvus. It has to be with tranquility and settledness. Kisavo la'aretz yirishta v'yashavta. Same as it has to be shebechlolos avoda kiseitze yeshnu kvar me'ein v'dugma v'ad l'scholos amodim matzah d'schar kisavo. It's got to be in. He's saying it's really one continuation. That the milchama that you're doing has to be in a way of kisavo. Of kisavo. I'm doing the milchama in a way of kisavo. I'm going out and fighting in a way of menucha and inheriting and dwelling and embodying and indwelling, in resting.
Are they counterproductive? Are they?
Well, that's what was his Havamina, right? He started out asking kasha after kasha about how these two parshas seem to be diametrically opposed to one another, and now he's saying actually it's the fakert, it's opposite. The Kisavo is giving you a pshat, is giving you a perish, is giving you an explanation on what Kiseitze needs to be. We need to do Kiseitze in a Kisavo way. We need to do Kiseitze lemilchama. We have to do the milchama in a way of Kisavo.
How do you do that?
Okay. I'm not sure I'm going to answer you right now,
Okay.
but hold that question.
Okay.
Good. This is similar to this is kind of parallel in what it says Pirkei Avos, in Mishnah Pirkei Avos. It says V'da shematan scharan shel tzadikim la'silavo. Know that the giving of the schar, the giving of the reward of tzadikim, of righteous people, is in the time to come. You can say the explanation of this is V'da shematan scharan shel tzadikim la'silavo. Da shedas hiloshen es kashrus. When it says no, knowing that das is really a language of connecting and being connected to and integrating. Ima maimid the scharan tzadikim la'silavo hainu shebizman ha'avoda, when we are working in our avoda, yesh no mein v'dugmas chalas, we have to be connected. We have to be connected to the schar of lasid lavo. If we're connected to the schar of asid lavoi, that is what will give us the ability to do the milchama properly.
You have to know what you're fighting for.
You have to be connected to the schar. Okay, we don't know what it means. Okay, we don't know what it means, but we have, in order to fight the fight properly, the fight has to be fought properly only if we are connected. If we are connected to this, the part of the schar, that we're already connected to it. This is hinted to in our week's parsha. What does it say in our week's parsha? It says, "B'yoymai titen scharoi." It talks about the payal, it talks about the worker, the day laborer. And this week's parsha, it reminds us, or it tells us for the first time, but it's probably a reminder, that you have to pay your worker on the day of his work. In Tetzei, you have to pay the laborer on the day his wages. You cannot push them off. So wait, that doesn't make sense. If we're talking about Tetzei is the avoda and Kisavo is the schar, then don't tell me in this week's parsha you have to pay your laborer on the day he works. That doesn't fit. That doesn't fit. If now's the time for avoda and later's the time for schar, so what are you telling me? Pay the laborer on the day he works. So no, this Tetzei has to be with the schar already here. The way of Tetzei is a kisavo, is a coming in to already the schar, is coming into the reward, is already coming in. That's how we do the avoda. We do the avoda in a way that we're already connected to the schar. We're already connected to the menucha and to the hisyashvas. We're not doing a milchama. We think doing milchama. We think like Braveheart. We think milchama. We think like we turn on the news. We think like we know people. We don't have to go to Braveheart, right? People going into war. It sounds very scary. It's very, very, very. You're freaking out. You talk about self-survival. No, this war we're talking about of our nefesh elokis to clarify and to purify our guf and our nefesh bahamis is not I'm gonna die. Our nefesh elokis doesn't die. Our nefesh elokis is our godly soul is eternal. So it never is worried about dying. Our worrying, our self-survival, the pressure we put on ourselves only comes from our nefesh bahamis. It's our nefesh bahamis. It's our nefesh bahamis trying to get us to do a better job for whatever we think we need to do. Because the nefesh bahamis, the reason why the nefesh bahamis, our animal soul, is the headquarters of our self-survival and of our individuation and our self-survival is because it's finite. The nefesh bahamis, the guf will die. After 120, it dies. So it's freaked out. It's got a clock on its existence. Our neshama doesn't have a clock. Our neshama has all the time in the world. Has all the time in the universe. Has all the time in the... Right? It's not bound by time. So anytime we feel pressure, anytime we feel like I gotta survive, I'm running out of time, that's our nefesh bahamis. That's what the avoda of the nefesh elokis in this world to clarify our body and our physical world, our physical life, is one that has to be benucha. We're not rushing. We're not anxious. We're bemenucha. We're with rest and tranquility. That's not a stira. That does not contradict the work. The work is with menucha. The work is with, and that happens when we are connected to the schar, to what it means, the schar. Okay? Let's see. And from this, it's going to be understood what is it relevant, even giving schar for our avoda, right? Why do we get schar from Hashem for our avoda? Like the balabayas, he has a worker. He gives the worker the wage on the day of his work, right? And it says, it says lamacher lekabel scharim, right? Now is for the work. And lamacher lekabel scharim. Tzarich lios ve'yishnam gam schar nitin bo b'yom. Titan schara. You have to give it on the day. So what's going on? We have contradictions. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says today's for the work, tomorrow's for the schar. What are you talking about? Torah just told me you have to pay the schar on the day. So let's understand with a little introduction here. Okay, so we have a kasha here, right? We seem to have a stira, right? One Mishnah says you're going to get schar later. Right now you work in schar later. And yet we have this idea that you have to pay your worker on the day. You have to give him his schar on his day. So on the day of his work. So how could it be that we have to work now and get the schar later? Stira. So we have to understand. We have to understand what is the schar? What is this? So first we have to understand what is the war that we're going out to fight. Rashi says, what kind of war are we talking about? Are we talking about a milchemes harishus or a milchemes chayva? Right? Is this a war that we're obligated to fight? That we have an obligation to fight? Like against the Shiva Amamim? Like for one of the 7 lands in Eretz Yisrael? Or is this a rishus? Is this a war that we can opt to fight or not? To increase the borders of Eretz Yisrael, whatever it is, we go ask the Urim V'Tumim, and it says go ahead and you can do it. But it's a rishus. It's our decision. Which war? Tetzei lamilchama. What would you say, according to what we've explained so far, that this is a metaphor for the soul beyond the metaphor? This is deeply describing the soul's journey to this world and its job here. What would you say, that this war is a chayva or is a rishus? Chova. Okay. What would you guess?
I haven't a clue.
You haven't a clue? You have a clue. Adon, what would you say? Would this war be an obligatory war or a war that you can opt for or not? The war of, if this war, ki tetzei go out to war, is referring to the war of our soul having to come down into this world and clarify our nefesh elokis, our nefesh bahamis, would you think that war would be an optional war or an obligatory war? Obligatory. Rabbi?
Optionally
Obligatory. Okay, but we know that Rashi says in the first parsha, in the first pasuk of the parsha, that this is talking about a milchemes harishus. Rashi says, What kind of milchama? Ki tetzei lemilchama alevecha is not talking about the milchama against your that is obligatory. It's talking about the war that is optional, that you decide to do. Now, what's this talk? How does this be? Now, if we're saying, how can we say this? If we're saying that this war is referring to the war that is our neshama's job in this world, in the physical body,
How do you motivate a lochem?
what do you mean?
You're going to a war, you have to motivate the soldiers. How do you do that? If it's up to you. How do you motivate a soldier?
Well, if it's up to you, then it's up to you. Every lochem has got to choose for themselves. It's up to them. Meaning, how do you motivate a soldier if it's optional? If it's obligatory?
Yeah.
If it's obligatory, then you have a question how to motivate. But if it's optional, then you don't have any more question. Then because if you're not motivated, you would not opt to do it. Like, that's your choosing. What do I have to worry about motivating you? You've decided this is what you want to do. This is up to you. This is a milchamas reshus. So that's what he says. He says that the yitzia of the milchama, of the clarification of our guf and our animal soul, isn't that a tzivui? Isn't that a chayiv? Isn't that commanded? And he asks further, okay, we're not answering now. We're asking further, is that if it's obligatory, schar, then how do you reconcile reward for something that's obligatory? Why do you get reward for doing something that's obligatory? Schar shaykh b'poyesh shemaskei asatzmei la'avodas balabayis. It's more as a schar, right? We talk about getting paid. You know, the worker goes and he says, I need money. So I go to the guy and I say, do you want work done? I'll do your work and you give me money. That's his choice. I'm not going to work for you for free. Good. But if somebody is an acquired, indentured servant, then you don't say, oh, give me my wages. This is your job. You're obligated for this. If Am Yisrael were obligated, we're called, we're called servants to Hashem. Right? It says, I was only created to l'shamish es kaini. Right? I was created only to serve my master. What are you even talking about schar? Why is there even an Indian of schar? If we're obligated. So two kashas. One, how could this be talking about a rishus? Because aren't we obligated? And second of all, since we're already talking about schar, how could we even talk about schar for something we get for something we do that we're obligated to do? You don't get schar for something you're obligated to do. So the answer is kitzei se lemilchama ivecha tetzei daika. When you go out, this going out is very special, very, very precise. Avodas adam ba'olam hi ba'ofen shel yitzia mimakomei ha'amiti. This work, the work that we find ourselves in, we're Klal Yisrael, we're Jews, okay? We have a neshama inside of there, a godly neshama, chelik v'lekam imal mamish. We have a piece of Hashem inside of us. This piece of Hashem inside of us is not its place. It's not its place. It went out of its place. It went out of its place. Lo rak biyachas lamidas neshama ba'olam atzilas. Not just it went out of olam atzilas. It didn't just go out of being totally, basically unified with Hashem. Elagam bekar biyachas l'sharshim makar rishon. Even before it was there, right? Olam Atzilas is still in the Seder Shtalshalos, right? Olam Atzilas is still part of the created world, right? When Hashem created the world, He created these four worlds: Atzilas, Bria, Yetzir Asiya, right? These four worlds, and Atzilus is like the most, like there's no like, that's the highest, okay? But really the place of the neshama comes from before Hishtalshalus ever started, before Hashem even created the world. Shari Machshavtan Shel Yisrael Kadma L'chol Davar. Hashem thought about Klal Yisrael before He created anything. Uben Nimlach HaKadosh Baruch Hu Al Davar Bria Seder Hishtalshalus. And before He created anything, the Chazal tell us, B'mi Nimlach, who did He go and see should He create the world or not? It's crazy medrash. What was there for him to but Nishmeisayim Shel Tzadikim. He went and asked the neshamas of the tzaddikim. Chelik Olkomi Mal Mamish. You want to become. They were. Yisrael and Kuchabrichu Kulachad. They're completely one. But Hashem has this, alter ego. I don't know how to say it. But even before the world was created, there was nothing. It was just Hashem. But yet he had this part called Nishmosei himself Tzadikim. And he went and asked them, should we create the world? Is this what we want to do? That's where we are from. That's who we are. That's who we are. Hashem, before the world was created, before there was any Seder Shtalshlus, before there was any Tzimtzum, before there was any Bria, there were the Jews with Hashem. You couldn't tell us apart. It was all one. And Hashem talked to himself, but it was really us, and said, should we create the world? Okay, I don't want to go there. So this that we said, we are a chelik of Havaya. We are a chelik of Atzmus, right? Can't be a chelik, If something's infinite, there's no chelik. But, okay, now it seems like it's a chelik, but Mitzad Hashem, it's completely connected. It's just from our perspective, it looks like there's different things. So this was completely above any kind of creation whatsoever. And it was Tetzei from that. He Tetzei from that place. In order to do this avodah beira olam hu la'acharei shenas l'seder shtalshalus, that we said yes, we'll do it. Hashem said yes, I'll do it. We'll do it. And so He created the world, and this was our rishus. This was a rishus. This wasn't something we were obligated to. Hashem, He chose this. He chose this. We are representing the Rebbeinu Shalom in this world. Okay. I think this is why why Hasidus. What did Hasidus bring to the world that people were so misnagid to? People were so misnagid to this idea. What truth did Hasidus reveal? It was part of Torah, obviously, right? Baal Shem Tov learned from Achia Shiloni, who got the Torah from Moshe Rabbeinu, right? So Baal Shem Tov was ish mipi ish. Mipi Agvura, he was one removed from Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay? He was number 3, Ish Mipi Gavura. From Gavura, Moshe Rabbeinu, Achia, the Baal Shem Tov. Okay? So, I'm not saying that he was mechadesh this like it wasn't something that, it wasn't part of Torah before. But that he made it public, in a certain sense. What is it? And my sense, take it for whatever you want, my sense is that it's this idea that the Jews, we are Hashem in this world. This whole world is like a story, is a movie, and somebody plays the Rebbeinu Shalom. Who plays the Rebbeinu Shalom? We play the Rebbeinu Shalom. We play the Rebbeinu Shalom. We have the Rebbeinu Shalom in us.
The most simple Jew in the world.
Absolutely.
This is the why.
What?
This is the difference between the Litvak way and the Hasidic way.
I'm not talking about ways yet. I'm just talking about emes. Is that the Geula is where Klal Yisrael, we are completely transparent to the Rebbeinu Shalom. That I live my life completely transparently as a expression of divine will, in a transparently pleasurable way. That's amazing, because I'm still your Achmiel. I'm not going to not be your Achmiel. I just heard a great thing, bittul. Bittul, right? Nullification, self-nullification. So we think that means you disappear. But bittul, be tool. Be a tool. Be tool means you're being a tool. It means whoever you are, your personality, your likes, dislikes, your families of origin, your whole thing, you be a tool for the Rebbeinu Shalom. It doesn't mean you vaporize. It doesn't mean you disappear. It doesn't mean you ignore yourself. It means you be a tool for Hashem. Stop worrying about yourself so much and just be a tool. Just be the tool. Be an expression. And according to Hasidus, Kedusha, being kadosh, that means being transparent. Being transparent, something that's transparent. You don't see. Yeah, you're talking to us, you're talking to a person, but it's the Rebbeinu Shalom. And we are little shtick Rebbeinu Shaloms, and that's what Gul is. And that's what he's saying. He's saying, Ki Tetzei. Ki Tetzei l'milchama, the neshama, the Yiddish neshama, our connection to Atzmus, to the one Hashem that existed before the creation of the world happened. And that's still the reality, right? Ani lo shinisi, right? Hashem says, I don't change, even though the world is created. And so that's still who we are. And that's our avoda is, to be in this world. Because when we're up there together, the pleasure can't be perceived. Because it's all one. There has to be this mushal, there has to be this metaphor, this creation, this illusion of separateness. So that we're in this place that's the farthest away from what seems to be the unity. Right? This farthest place that is so minaged unity, that is so opposed to Hashem's oneness. It's all fragmentation. It's all diversity and fragmented in different pieces, and you and me, and we're different, and this nefesh Bahamas and this goof, right? This goof and this goof and that goof and this goof. Everything's different goofs. The complete opposite of unity, of oneness. And that's where Hashem wants to dwell, so expressed and comfortably. Where you can be in your house and you can sing at the top of your lungs and you can dance and you can this and then, no, you're not worried about anybody seeing you, and you can just feel so expressed and so free and uninhibited, right? It's not like when you go out and you have to zip up and you have to, you're not going to, people think you're a cuckoo, okay? Hashem wants to be fully expressed, fully uninhibited in this world, which is totally... I'm for myself, fragment. And so we have this, that's what our war is. Our war is to be a piece of Hashem, this totally oneness of Hashem, in this fragmented situation, and rule over it. Rule over it, like express through it, not breaking the ego, but convincing the ego. Menucha, convincing the ego. This is what reality really is. And by doing that, through menucha, through dwelling, that will ultimately bring that's the kisavo. Kisavo el haaretz, right? And he says it later. Kisavo el haaretz. You come and do this milchama like you're coming into the land. What's our land? This is our land. Our body is our land. This is our land. Kisavo el haaretz. When you come into the land, you inhabit it, you dwell it. This is our eretz. This is our eretz. So we are coming, the Nefesh Elokis needs to come inhabit our land, our goof. And what's the problem? Our ego is saying, get out of here. I gotta survive. What are you doing? I need to see results. Cause and effect. And Hashem was like, whoa. We gotta come into the body. We gotta be expressing the Rebbeinu Shalom here. This is. We need to feel comfortable. Hashem has to feel comfortable here. So this is how we connect these two things. How we connect these, and the way. And we say schar mitzvah mitzvah. I'm just going to jump to the end because I have to run. But schar mitzvah, that the schar, the reward of the mitzvah, is the gilui, is the revelation of this light, of this connection. And when we're connected to who we really are, which is that we are atzmas Hashem, we are really like, we are connected to Hashem before He created the world, right? Yisrael v'kutshabricha kul echad. If we can bring that into our consciousness and bring that and tell our body that and tell our ego that we're really, this is like serious business. There is serious existential atzmas and achdus pulsating our being, then we can be connected to the schar. When we do a mitzvah, we can get to that connection. The reason when we do mitzvahs we don't feel the schar is because we're doing it as an ego. I need to get another mitzvah. I need to make sure I secure my olam haba. I need to secure my health and my wealth and my relationships and my this. And so I'm doing it from the ego. Because I'm connected to my survival. I'm not connected to my infinity. I'm not connected to my eternality, my achdus, my atzmas, being a chelik of atzmas Hashem. How could it be? It's me. How could I be a chelik of Hashem? How could that be here in my bones and my body? Doesn't make any sense. Good, it doesn't make any sense. And that's why the ego has such a hold on us. Because gullus is the darkness of that. It's the hiddenness of that. And so our ego has the upper hand. But when we can connect to the reality of the achdus, that we really have this chelik elokami mal mamish, that Hashem is running the whole thing, that it's all an illusion, this fragmentation. Cause and effect is an illusion. If we're connected to that, we already are living in the schar. We're living in the schar. And it says at the end, we have to publish, we have to make famous, we have to be mitparsem. One of the instructions.
Bob, I need your help for 1 minute.
He's here?
No, I just need your help fast to speak to somebody real quick.
We are at the precipice of the edge and the ceiling and the end of this time of our work, of Maaseinu v'Avodeseinu, of our avoda, u'baschalas atkufa de tashlum schar, matan schar letzadikim. We are. This is a nice vort, for 100 years ago, but right now, it's actually the time where our avoda should be in a kisavo. Where we're done with the war. We're done with the war, and it's our. So it's ours for the taking. It's ours for the taking. If we connect to the reality, if we connect to Achdus Hashem, if we connect, it doesn't make any sense. But if I'm willing to connect to that, then I'll see the schar, I'll feel the schar. It won't be because I'm doing it for a particular reason. It will just be what the reality is. Ki Tetzei. I am here totally far off from where I really belong, from where I came from. I came from the highest place. I am a chelik of atzmas, of achdus Hashem, mamish. And when I'm in that milchama, when I ki tetzei, when I realize I am so out of where my reality is, I can do that war of menucha and of makabel schar and of mitzvahs, because I realize this is not my natural habitat. I'm not just trying to survive here in this world because this is where I was born. Ki tetzei, I've gone very far from my root and my source because Hashem wants a dwelling here. He wants a dwelling here, and the pleasure that will come from that ultimately will be so amazing. It will be so amazing, and it's what we can tap into right now by doing the schar. This is what we wanted. We chose this. It's our reshus. We chose it. And so the schar, if we connect to that going out, that choice, that's how we bring it, and we're matzliach in the last moments of the darkness and the gullus. We should see the light and the gula shlema b'mher b'yamin.